Today we are going to study about synthetic theory, right? This is very important topic related to topic number 1.4, right? And this is related to theory of organic evolution. So in this topic, basically, we study about mechanism for the understanding of evolution, right? So basically, synthetic theory refer to synthesis, right? It is a synthesis of Darwin theory of natural selection, right? Theory of natural selection. It is a synthesis of theory of mutation, it is a synthesis of theory of germplasm, it is a synthesis of Mendel law of inheritance, Mendel law of inheritance, and it is a synthesis of various theory related to population genetics. Population genetics like Hardy-Weinberg law, Weinberg law, and a theory of concept of genetic drift, etc. Right? This is the synthesis. So whenever you try to define synthetic theory is the synthesis of Darwin theory of natural selection, theory related to neo-Darwinism, and theory related to population genetics. And on the basis of that synthesis, synthetic theory explain evolution in holistic perspective. Explain evolution in holistic perspective, right? Holistic perspective. You have to remember about that. It explains evolution in a holistic perspective, and according to synthetic theory, evolution refers to an organic process in which organisms evolve from simple to complex form due to change in their gene frequency, right? So this is synthetic theory. Then if you want to understand about the factor responsible for evolution and understanding for the mechanism of evolution, factors responsible for evolution, right? According to synthetic theory, or if you want to understand about the mechanism of evolution, so you can divide factors into two ways. First, some factors responsible for variation, right? because the role of variation is very important in evolution. So, first we have to understand about the factor which are responsible for variation, and second, factors which are responsible for change in genetic equilibrium, right? You have to remember that thing. First, factor responsible for variation. So, these are the factors which are responsible for variation. First was mutation. First is mutation. Second is gene recombination, right? And third is hybridization. And factors which are responsible for change in genetic equilibrium, that are isolation, migration, third, genetic drift, and next, natural selection. Right? So, these are the 7 important factors which are responsible for evolution. So, basically mutation is the ultimate sources of variation first, and you have to define these all factors. So, if you want to understand about the role of these factors which are responsible for evolution, so mutation is the ultimate sources of variation. That concept was developed by Hugo de Vries, right? Because new gene comes in organism through mutation. But remember that there are 2 types of mutation, one negative mutation and positive mutation. So, the role of only positive mutation, negative mutation has no any role in evolution, because that create problem in population. We are suffering from various types of genetic diseases due to mutation. So, only positive mutation has important role in evolution, because mutation is the ultimate sources of variation. So, natural selection positively select positive variation which inherited in next generation through differential reproductive success, and therefore evolution happen, right? So, first you have to remember about that role of mutation. Second, gene recombination. What do you mean by gene recombination? So, it means recombination of gene, from two different sources, right? Recombination of gene from 2 different sources. So, you can easily understand that thing on the basis of example from human reproductive system. In the course of zygote formation in human being, because in human being there is sexual reproduction. So, in the course of zygote formation, 50% gene comes from mother side and 50% gene comes from father side. Both randomly recombine with each other, and therefore genotype of offspring is different from genotype of his her parent. So, due to gene recombination secondary variation occur in population, and if that secondary variation create positive variation, that is positively selected by natural selection, hence evolution happened. Third important thing is hybridization. When male and female both belongs from two different social group, they are doing mating with each other, and therefore due to hybridization there are development of heterozygosity in population. Heterozygosity in population, and therefore it has some very important role in the change of gene frequency in population. Therefore, hybridization also does very important role for evolution. And here you have to understand the role of these important factors: isolation, migration, genetic drift, and natural selection. So, isolation means geographical isolation, which create reproductive isolation, then which create genetic isolation, and therefore in totally geographically isolated population there is development of homozygosity in that population. So therefore similar trait develop in that population, and through that similar trait that population adjust with their environment, and therefore that population shows variation with other population, and therefore that isolation create change in genetic equilibrium in population. Migration means when a population migrated from one geographical area to other geographical area, or one ecological niche to other ecological niche. So due to migration, migrated population adjust with new geographical niche in new way, and therefore due to new way of adaptation, new trait develop in that migrated population, and therefore that does very important role in the change in genetic equilibrium of population. Genetic drift refer to a random event which happen in a isolated small population, and due to that random event, if there is extinction of gene in that population, extinction of gene in that population, that is called genetic drift. Suppose a population live in a isolated island, and that population has people who belongs from A blood group, right? B blood group, or O blood group, and in that population only 100 people live, right? And that A blood group people, 50 people from A blood group, 25 from B blood group, from B blood group, and 25 from O blood group. And suppose that all people who belongs from B blood group die due to random event. So there is extinction of gene which are responsible for B blood group, and therefore in rest population their genetic constitution became changed, and therefore genetic drift is also responsible for change in gene frequency in population. And lastly, the role of natural selection. This is very important because if you talk about these all factors, mutation, gene recombination, hybridization, isolation, migration, genetic drift, they either create a new gene in population or they are responsible for change in genetic equilibrium, but that they work when natural selection positively select that variation. So the role of natural selection is very important for evolution because natural selection work as like a filter. So those variation positively selected by natural selection which inherited in next generation through differential reproductive success, and therefore evolution occur. So on the basis of that discussion, you will be able to understand about synthetic theory, right? And therefore synthetic theory explain evolution in holistic perspective, and we are able to understand evolution through that synthetic theory, right? So this is synthetic theory.